Hey, good morning. So just take a moment to come into your non-dominant cross-legged position. And never assuming that you need the same props as you did last time. So always just kind of making a fresh inquiry. Our bodies change. And we have to kind of always check in with what our needs are. Sometimes we need more support than others if we're tight or tense. So just make sure that you're not holding your own legs up, that they're able to truly release down. And this has to do with your groins being, how tight your groins are, how tight your hips are. Give yourself enough height under your sitting bones that your spine really feels tall, that your low back is flat or concave. Just see that it isn't rounded. And then just take a moment to bring your shoulders back in line with your hips, your skull in line with your spine. And before lifting your hands away from the floor, just make sure you can kind of maintain what you have going on in your chest. This lift and spread of the chest. B.K.S. Iyengar refers to the chest as having 4 moons. So 2 kind of in the upper chest and then 2 in the lower chest. And what we want to kind of think about throughout this practice today is keeping those 4 moons shining forth. We don't want to be collapsing the chest at all in the forward bending practice. So once you have kind of that vision or image in your mind of the 4 moons of the chest, then join your hands together in front of your heart. Close your eyes, look down toward your cheeks. And just begin with a sense of feeling very anchored, very grounded into the floor before thinking about the lengthening. Just tap into all of your roots underneath you, the heavy shoulders, the downward pointed gaze. See if you can sense the weight of your own legs. And you might find that once you pay deeper attention to your roots, the lightness of the torso comes as a result. We don't have to really will it forth. And if you don't sense the lightness, maybe just imagine it. Maybe every time you breathe in, imagining a little balloon filling up between the vertebrae. Maybe imagining that your pelvis is floating a little bit higher from the floor. The rib cage is floating a little bit higher from the floor. And also your skull. And just keep holding. I'm just offering a little bit of a reading today from my daily yoga book. This is for today's date, September 13th. The secret to living well is never to do as much as you can. Many of us measure our self-worth by how much we can get accomplished in a day. Consider this, our worth is not based on accomplishment, but on our existence as a whole human being. Today, resolve to do 10% less and enjoy yourself more. So even with our practice, we can apply that. Just do a little less and see if you can enjoy a little bit more. So on your exhale, keeping those 4 moons shining brightly, bow towards your heart. And release your hands. When you're ready, lift your head and gently open your eyes. Welcome. Okay, so we're going to work with binding this week. That means we're going to use a connection of the hands behind our backs to keep our 4 moons shining brightly in these forward bends. And so we're going to be working a lot with a strap today. And so right away, let's just make a loop with our strap. And the perfect size for you is when you slip your wrists into the loop, your wrists are pretty well in line with your shoulders. And if you're tighter, you might want to make that loop a little bigger, just a little more generous, so that your shoulders have room to start to work in a more open position. So we're going to begin in a reclining Paryankasana. It's modified. We're just going to keep our legs in a simple cross-legged position. But I like to use 2 blocks for this pose to support the chest really opening. So one will be for your head, and you can kind of determine what height you need when you get in there. And then one will be support for the dorsal spine, which is the area between your shoulder blades. And you also have to determine what sort of height you need, and you might not know until you get down there and see about it. And the strap will be for the arm work that we're going to do to kind of encourage the chest to really open and the shoulders to start to move into a more external rotation. And because we just did our non-dominant cross-legged, go into your dominant cross-legged position so that you can bring a little more balance into your body. You'll just kind of slide the buttocks forward and try to land the shoulder blades on that first block. And then make sure your head has the right support. So what we want is just a chin and forehead level relationship. We don't want to be tilting the chin up or down necessarily, just kind of a neutral neckline, supported head. And then you'll take your wrists into your strap and you'll extend the arms overhead. And just to decide if you need a little time before you reach overhead. Sometimes we need a little time with the arms down first. So on my own body, and this is something that's different for me day to day, my hands today are hitting the floor, which is a good sign. It means I'm pretty open. So what I'm going to do to help myself continue to be able to stretch is I'm going to move my blocks up a level so that I'm a little bit higher from the floor so that my arms have somewhere to go. So if that's the case for you as well, you'll just want to position those blocks a little bit taller. So do your best. The strap is giving you some nice feedback. Really what we're trying to kind of, for most of us, work into is the inner wrists are a little more dull than the outer wrists. So for most of us, we feel more pressure of the outer wrist into our strap than we do with the inner wrist. So this means turning your thumb slightly farther out and bringing those inner wrists to meet that strap with kind of the same amount of pressure, ideally, as the outer wrists. So a big piece of being able to keep our chest open and bind the arms behind us to help us keep the chest open is the shoulders. And for many of us, we have tight shoulders. I'm just bringing these actions kind of into sharper focus. Will help you with these binding poses today. Just a few more breaths. If you need a break, make sure to take one. You can either lower the arms or come out of the strap or grab your elbows. And then as you're ready, you can just kind of slip your hands out of the strap. And this is a big pose to come out of. So you have a couple options. I like to come up if I'm kind of high up, like I come out of hero pose, keeping my chest forward and just kind of keeping my back moving into my front body, using my hands against the floor and coming up. You also have to use your stomach muscles a little bit there to do that. We're going to come into some seated warm-ups. So take a blanket or 2 blankets. I want your knees to be able to sit down. So if you take 2 blankets and your knees are high up, you want to put some blocks there. We just want to take some time with our seated warm-ups and make sure we feel comfortable here. So if you've been in my classes for a while, you might remember the seated warm-up sequence because it's kind of my go-to. So just sit up tall and lower your chin to your chest. Keep your shoulders heavy. Keep your spine tall. Be perched over the sitting bones and just see if you can start to sense the weight of your head. A lot of us have very tense necks. So just staying a little bit longer, giving it some breath, maybe starting to work through some of that tension. And now you're going to start to roll your head to one side so your ear comes above, or sorry, your ear comes above one shoulder. And then exhale your chin back to your chest. Inhale the head to the other side. And exhale, chin to chest. We'll just do it a few more times. You're moving with your own breath, inhaling to the side and exhaling to center. The next time you're centered, lift your head. We're going to move the shoulders now. So you're going to make rotations, and we're bringing the shoulders from the back to the front first before we go into the second direction. So as you start to rotate your shoulders, kind of lifting, moving them forward, bringing them down, bringing them back, your primary goal is smoothness. So that might mean you have to make this a little bit slower. It might mean that you have to be in a smaller range of motion. It might mean that you have to do both things. So make smoothness of this movement pattern your most interesting aspect of what you're doing. And the next time your shoulders are forward and down, we're going to reverse direction. Let's do 3 more like this. Notice your shoulder blades, how they glide around your back. And the next time your shoulders are back and down, you can leave them there. And now we'll move the spine laterally. So place your left hand next to your hip, kind of extended off the line of the hip. Inhale, bring the right arm up. And on your exhale, lengthen the fingertips to the left. But then right away, restore some weight to your right sitting bone. So we have an anchor point. Out of that anchor point, extend through your fingertips. We don't want to have a ballet arm because that kind of confuses the direction of energy. Keep your arms straight. And keep your shoulder plugged into your torso. Your shoulders should not be following the fingertips. So keep it anchored into the trunk. And then one more piece of this is just to restore a sense of space to the left side body. We're not trying to rob Peter to pay Paul, as they say. So keeping a sense of spaciousness to that shortened left side body. And then on an in-breath, lift yourself up. And exhale, we can bring the right fingertips down. And then inhale, raise the left arm. And exhale, lengthening to the right. But again, right away, bring some weight back to your left sitting bone. Tuck your shoulder back into the torso. And the next piece of this, which I didn't say on the first side, is to just start to gently point your chest toward the ceiling. But sometimes that piece isn't ready. So just kind of listening into the body and seeing if that kind of revolving action helped or hurt what you're doing. Just a couple more breaths, just float some space into the right intercostals between the side ribs with each breath. And on an in-breath, lift yourself up and bring the arm down. Okay, so we'll twist now, raising both arms up on the inhale. And now exhale, you're going to cross your left hand to your right thigh, right hand directly behind you. You should be touching your body so you know the arm is really as close to being under the shoulder as you can get it to be. And then gently start to turn. And just kind of imagine that the turning is coming up into the chest region, especially around that left armpit area where it can feel a little bit stuck, a little bit congested maybe. And you'll finish your twist like by carrying your head, moving your head, your chin above your right shoulder as well as you can. It might not be perfectly aligned, but just bringing it in that direction. And on an inhale, raising both arms, coming back to center. And then exhale, we're going to turn to the left. So your right hand finds the left thigh, the left hand, you're just going to prop it right behind your tailbone, your sacrum. You might feel a little bit kind of stiff or sticky or rigid. Just waiting for that to start to release using deeper breaths. Feeling that opportunity to turn a little deeper on every exhale. Try to clear that right armpit chest. Sometimes it can be helpful to flip to the back of the hand, pressing on the thigh to bring that area around out of the shadows. And then finish with the head turning, the chin aligning with the left shoulder as well as you can. And after an exhalation, inhale to raise the arms, come back to center, and then exhale, release your arms down. So before we come out of our seated position, we're going to come into cow pose, which is a great way to open your shoulders. So go ahead and switch to crossing of the legs again, just to kind of give your legs another position. And we're going to work with an open strap, but if you don't want to open it up, you can probably work with your bound strap and just grab it as if it was one long strap. So we're going to start by taking the strap into the right arm, right hand, I should say, raising the right arm. And then you're going to turn the arm so that you're feeling your fingernails pointing backwards. And then from that, bending the elbow and bringing your hand down as close as you can to that area between your shoulder blades. So for most of us, the elbow pokes out wide, so you have to train the elbow to move toward midline to arrive above the shoulder line. And then once you have that, you really want to reach up through the elbow. Reach up through the elbow, keeping that beautiful vital armpit area nice and open. And then you're going to take your left arm with the knuckles pointing forward, the thumb pointing down, strong internal rotation here on the shoulder. Swing the arm and catch your strap. And then walk your hands as close together as they can be. And then try to create resistance between the elbows. So your bottom elbow is moving down to the floor and slightly back. The top elbow is moving up to the ceiling and slightly back. And try to stay over your sitting bones. Keep your skull above your spine. Don't let the top arm bully the head forward. Keep your head kind of pressing into the top arm if you need to. Those four moons of the chest shining brightly. Keep the lumbar spine long, though don't let your kind of abdomen fall forward. Don't shorten your lumbar. So keeping a little bit of a contracted navel to spine relationship. And gently let your hands release. Taking your strap into your left hand. Revolving the arm as well as you can so that your knuckles are facing forward, palm facing back. You're starting with a straight arm. And then bending the elbow. Take your hand to that center area near your shoulder blades. Move the elbow toward midline so that it comes above the shoulder line. Reach up through the elbow then. And then keeping that, extending your right arm out, thumb down, and then swinging the arm. Catch your strap. And work your hands together. And just imagine you're sitting up against a wall and the tips of your elbows are just grazing the wall gently. The elbows want to pull forward, so we have to resist the elbows back. And when we do that, that helps the shoulder blades move forward, helps the chest stay lifted and spread. Think about energy moving from the bottom elbow up to the top elbow. And again, watch that lumbar spine. It's very easy to just kind of fall into the abdomen here. So keep the navel in. Be on top of the center points of your sitting bones. And just a couple more breaths. Beautiful. Gently start to release your arms. Taking a Shavasana position with your arms. Extending the fingertips toward the floor, palms facing forward, and lengthening out through all 10 fingertips. Like you have little sprinklers on each fingertip. And relaxing the arms. And we'll move into a table pose, hands and knees. So we haven't done flexion and extension of the spine yet. So we're going to do cat-cow. Your wrists should be in line with your shoulders or slightly forward. Knees are in line with your hips. Feet are as wide as your knees. And on an exhale, as if you're contouring your body over a giant beach ball, curl your chin into your chest and point your tailbone down. Inhale, arch your back. And now imagine that giant beach ball is on your back body and look forward. And as you move like this, think about the entire length of your spine from the tip of the tailbone all the way to the base of the skull. And try to include all the moving parts of the spine. Move with your breath. And again, be more interested in the fluidity of your movement than in how deep it is, how fast, how many repetitions. Just the smoothness is really what we're interested in here. Let's just do a few more just to see if we can make any progress with the feeling of mobility and ease along the spine. And even if we can't, that's okay too. And whenever you come into your next deep cow or cat, the following movement is just back to a neutral spine. I'm going to take the toes underneath now. And before we move into a downward dog, really take some time curling each toe underneath, especially the pinky toes, which tend to just dangle there and feel like they're not involved. Try to bring a sense of moving toward the top of the mat with the pinky toes, and then sit back a little bit, your buttocks toward your heels. Walk your hands closer to your knees. We are going to do malasana today, which is garland pose, which is deep knee flexion, and also it's a deep stretch for the feet. So I just wanted to tuck in a little bit of a, I hate the name of this pose, but broken toes pose. Breathe into it. Do less. Remember our reading. Do less. Just give your breath to the sensation, but don't kill yourself with sensation, which you can do very easily in this pose. And we do tend to roll out here. So bringing the inner heels toward each other just a little bit. Breathe. Give it some breath. And then inhale to move forward. Turn the tops of the feet back to the floor. Give them a pause here. And then we will come back to turning the toes under in a moment for downward dog. So make sure your feet have recovered. And then when you're ready, tuck those toes underneath again and exhale, extend your legs. So imagine you're wearing 8-inch heels. You want to keep your heels really high and bring your hips as far back as you can. And then really keeping your shoulder blades moving toward your chest. Start to step the heels down individually, just waking up your legs this way. What we don't want to do is as we kind of pump the heels, we don't want to just kind of have our shoulders move back above the hips. I'm sorry, our shoulders move back above the wrists. So you're going to try to really keep your hips back and walk the heels individually. And now come back to 2 lifted heels, and on an in-breath, move your weight forward to a plank position, shoulders in line with wrists. Take your tailbone into the body toward the floor. Try to roll the inner upper arms out to kind of make your chest grinning, smiling from armpit to armpit. Tighten up your legs. And now place your knees wide, feet together, and sit back for child's pose. So ideally, the forehead is down and the arms are extended and we don't have anything but our hands touching the floor. So the arms are very active in this pose. The arms are extensions of the very long sides of your torso. From your hip crest all the way to your fingertips, we have this really nice line of energy. And let gravity melt those shoulder blades toward your chest. Every time you exhale, just plunge them deeper toward the front body. So this next downward dog will bring us up to standing. You're going to try to hold it for 8 breaths. If you need to leave early, just tiptoe into a standing forward bend. Make sure your knees come back in line with your hips and your feet are as wide as your knees. Turn the toes under, bring some attention to the small toes, give them some purpose. Exhale, extend your legs. Start with very lifted heels now. Move the shoulder blades to the chest toward the thighs, and then see about extending your legs, but without allowing your hips to float forward. You'll probably still have some space between your heels and the floor. So think about this pose. We want to look more like a letter V, upside down letter V, less like an upside down letter U. So that sharp hinging at the hips, which requires that very active forward pelvic tilt. Moving the inner edges of your rib cage, front ribs toward each other so that we don't fall into the abdomen. When you move the inner front ribs together, it fills out the back body a little more. So we bring more equanimity into the pose. When you're ready, start to creep the feet toward the wrists. Grab your elbows here. You might need to bend your knees, depends what your legs are saying this morning. But we are working toward a straighter leg, so make sure you're meeting your edge, sensation edge. Your legs are as straight as they can be, that you can tolerate it, you can breathe. And then drop your hands and come up slowly. Try to use your stomach muscles. We don't want our head kind of rolling up last. Just help yourself come up. And once you're up, you're going to put yourself in mountain pose. So for some of us, we can join the legs and feet and still feel stable. And for some of us, we need to open up all the way up to a hip distance or any amount in between. Just put yourself in mountain pose. Close your eyes gently. Always starting with where we meet the floor, the feet. I'm trying to distribute our weight over the feet as evenly as we can. All the toe pads, the 3 ball mounds on each foot, lifting the inner arches of the feet. See if you can give a little more emphasis to anchoring back into your heels. Firming your legs, widening the backs of the knees. Move the tailbone into the body. Put your skull right above your spine. And just imagine there's strings from every fingertip to the floor. And let those strings tighten a little bit. Feel the fingertips moving a little bit closer to the floor. Go ahead and open your eyes and just release. Shake your legs out. Release your arms. So because we're doing binding with our standing poses, we don't need blocks for the hands because our hands will be behind us. We're going to do Parsvottanasana with that same loop that we started with at the beginning of this class, Paryankasana. So it's the same loop that fits you when you put your wrists in, your arms are in line with your shoulders. And again, if you're tight, you need to work with a little bit more width so that you can externally rotate the shoulders. So from mountain pose, just slip your wrists into your loop once you have it. And I see a few of you have those long straps. So I just don't want you to trip on your strap. So just be aware of that if it's dangling around you. Maybe don't jump out, maybe step out. But let's start with our wrists in the strap so that our palms face forward. Okay, so you're again bringing a little more emphasis to turning the thumbs back and the pinkies forward. Feel free to jump if you are clear of any trip hazards. Otherwise, step out wide, and we're going to turn the right toes out, left toes way in, so that the left toes only have slight turnout toward the edge of your mat. Take a moment to revolve the hips so that if your hips were headlights, they would be even. And then try to straighten both legs. We get a little bit forgetful sometimes with the back leg. So really feel your down dog leg here. Open the back of the knee. Try to be even with the wrists pressurized into the strap. Lift your 4 moons here. Take a big breath in, lifting the 4 moons. And then exhale, you're going to try to align your torso with your right leg. And you're going to look down at your big toe. And for the next 5 breaths, you're extending the nose out beyond the big toe. And you're revolving your arms so that your thumbs keep rotating up, your pinkies keep rotating slightly down to keep the shoulders moving back. Okay, so we're not going to go as deep because we have a lot of more effort going on when we do it this way. Keep your legs straight. Remember to transfer some weight to the right big toe, left small toe, so you're more balanced across your feet. That momentum that wants to pull you to the right here. We're just correcting for that a little bit. And on an in-breath, come up through the crown of the head, lift, 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 lift. Pivot your feet. You're back to a wide stance. Take a moment to release out of your strap and jumper step the feet together. Just hold your strap in one hand, close your eyes, sensing that mountain pose, what it feels like after the work you just did, sensing the breath, maybe some energy in the body that we just kind of think about. The poses are like contracting a fist. And then when you let the fist go, there's some resulting energy and sensation. So every pose is kind of like a fist. And then afterwards, we usually take a moment to see what the release of that particular set of contractions feels like. And then as you're ready, you can put your hands, your wrists back into your loop, palms facing forward, training those shoulders to sit back, and then jumper step your feet wide. And then we'll pivot the left toes out, the right toes in. For Parsvottanasana, we have to be hip width with the feet. So for some of us, that means you have to create a little more distance. You have to step that back foot out a little wider to clear the room for the hips to square. Okay, so take care of the legs first. Straight legs, tailbone moving in, lifted kneecaps. Lift those 4 moons of your chest. Make sure your hips are square. Come to the top of the in-breath. And then extending over your left leg, leading with your chest. You'll meet your edge, and at that point, rotate your thumbs farther up, which turns those inner shoulder blades toward your chest. Lengthening the nose out over the line of the big toe. You can keep your neck neutral, looking down. Try to manage the weight bearing over the toes so it's more even. You're going to take an inhale out of here. So next in breath, lift, 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 lift. Pivot your feet back to a nice wide stance. And you can jumper step together and hold your strap in one hand and just come back to mountain pose. Couple breaths. Okay, so we'll open the eyes. The next bound poses we're going to do are in our Prasarita Padottanasana. So this is our wide standing forward bend. We're going to do it 3 ways. So 3 different positions for the hands. Go ahead and just step your feet to your wide position. Remember, one of your own legs could fit between your feet. That's a good amount of space. Take care of the feet once you're wide. You don't want to be bulldozing your small toes. So try to lift and spread the toes out. The toe bases should be broad. Same with the heels. If they kind of got scrunched up under themselves, bring some space back to your heels. And grab the floor with the outer skirting of the feet, but lift the inner arches of your feet. And then the outer ankle bones want to push out. See if you can kind of draw them in. Sometimes that's more in the imagination, but that's where everything begins, is the imagination. So if you're not sensing it, you're imagining it. Pull the outer ankle bones in. Hands are going to come to our hips. You're going to squeeze the elbows together so that you feel your shoulders broaden, your chest broaden. Meanwhile, your thumbs can just kind of direct the tailbone in, or you can gently push to kind of move, bring that movement in. Take an in-breath here, lift your gaze, and then exhale, keeping your elbows close, leading yourself into a half forward bend with the chest coming forward first. Keep the weight balanced over the feet. Imagine if your legs are up against a wall, so you want to keep the weight really even. And now inhale, come up. Beautiful. Next version, we're going to interlock our hands behind our backs. Go tight into your finger webbing. Roll your shoulders back. Imagine you're putting your shoulder blades into your back pockets. And then put something heavy into your hands, like you're pulling your hands toward the floor. Open the palms up without losing that tight finger webbing interlock. Feel your shoulders rotating from front to back. Move the tailbone in, look up. And then on an exhale, tilt the pelvic bowl forward and come halfway forward again, leading with the chest. Okay, 2 more exhales. On your in-breath, you're going to come up. Beautiful work. Release your arms. Maybe do some paint brushing with your wrists rotating just to give your arms a little release. And now we're going to prep for the last version. You can jump your feet together. And I'm going to turn around. So reverse prayer pose. We join the hands together behind the back. We move the fingertips onto the tailbone. We take the small fingers, pinky fingers onto the sacrum or tailbone. And then we work the hands up as high as we can get them. And then we close the hands. So for a lot of us, that's something that is coming, but it's not there yet. If you can close your hands, you can keep this. If not, you're going to do an opposite forearm grab, coming as close to the elbows as you can. Okay. So you're going to be back in your mountain pose, and we will jump or step out once you have the position you're going to work with your hands. If you do have the reverse prayer, you have a direct signal from the back body to the front body to keep those 4 moons really lifted. If you're grabbing your elbows, you're not quite touching that part of the body, so you have to bring a little more imagination. Big in-breath, and then exhale, half forward bend. Keep the elbows resisting up because they want to droop. Keep them resisting up against gravity. You can keep your gaze forward or more neutral toward the floor. Just don't dunk your head because that tends to collapse the sternum. Forward tilt with the pelvis. Wise actions in your feet. Good. Keep working those hands together if you're in reverse prayer. And then on an in-breath, come up. And then jump or step the feet together. And you're going to release your arms, just like we did seated. That idea of the little sprinklers, the Shavasana arms. So with your arms extended about 45 degrees, just rotate your pinkies slightly more forward, your thumbs slightly farther back, and extend with a little more emphasis or energy out through your fingertips. Good. I'll release the arms. So that's it for standing work. Like I said, we're going to work on Malasana, which is the garland pose. The reason it's called garland pose is because we create a big loop with our arms. So you might need a strap. You might not. So just put it in front of you. So this is where we have deep knee flexion. Some of us are more limited with that, although everybody here, I believe, is okay with it. But I will watch you and see if I see anybody that needs a modified version. But what we want to do is we want to anchor our heels in a squatting position. So most of us, myself included, don't squat with our feet together with our heels grounded. We need a filler. So you're going to take a blanket edge and place it under your heels. And right now I have one blanket and it's very light contact. I want to have a good amount of pressure. So I'm going to actually add a second blanket so that I can feel a good connection of my heels anchoring. Okay. So we're taking a squatting position. Our heels are propped on blankets. And you're going to feel a lot of momentum of your weight moving forward, which is why we want contact with our heels so that we can do some work to really get the heels to sit down. Okay, good. You guys look great. So step one is your feet are together and your knees are together. There's a big potential for you to be kind of putting a lot of bearing down into the lower spine and out through the perineum. So that's a loss of energy. So you need to do the upward lifting action of the pelvic floor. So that's that gentle contraction that shouldn't take more effort than it takes your eyes to blink. It's a contraction of the pelvic floor to shuttle that energy up your spine. It's important. So make sure you're doing the Mula Bandha. Arms come in front of you, but not to the point where you can see shoulders. So move the shoulders back. Your chest is forward, remember. Good, you guys look great. So next step is to only separate the knees. Just separate the knees, but we don't want to roll out on the feet. So you have to bring extra attention to your big toes, ball mounds anchoring, your big toes anchoring, and your inner heels anchoring. So knees are wide, but we didn't just roll the feet. Okay, next step is to touch the floor. Okay, so from here, look forward and crawl your hands any amount forward, more forward. Okay, and now let your head bow. Okay, so next step is to keep your upper arms within the space of the knees, but to grab onto the backs of your ankles. And this is where you might just put a strap between your hands. If the width between the hands is too narrow, you might put a strap between your hands to widen that up a little bit. Once you're holding there, look forward. So Louise, arms inside, your upper arms inside the legs. Yes. Yes. Look forward and then bow the head. So essentially your arms create this big garland, the name of the pose, Malasana, and the head moves toward the floor. But the arms are functional. Press your arms against your legs. Use that to help you pull the chest forward. Okay, so we reverse these steps back to come up. So bring your hands forward, back to the floor. And on an inhale, zip your knees together and realign your arms with the floor. Good. And now you're going to help yourself forward, knees down, cross your ankles and sit down on your blankets and extend your legs. So after all of that knee flexion, we need to recover. So you're in Dandasana. You're putting your feet together, your toes are directly over your heels. Your fingertips next to your hips, your shoulders in line with your hips. Your skull in line with your spine. Roll your inner knees down. And just imagine the backs of the knees yawning open. Reach out a little extra through the big toe ball mounds, through the inner heels. Okay. And now releasing. You can bounce your legs if you need to. I'm on 2 blankets and I don't want to be. I want to be on 1 because 2 is a little too high for my seated work. So make sure you're on your correct amount of height for a seated pose. And we're going to work with the strap. I have it there. And come back to Dandasana. So we're going to come into Marichyasana, binding our arms. This is a forward bend, seated forward bend, named after a sage, the sage named Marichi. So from Dandasana, let's scoop from behind the right knee and draw the right heel toward the right sitting bone. But we're going to start the pose with a twist, because when we move the spine either laterally or we rotate the spine, it helps us deepen our forward flexion. So we're going to start with a twist just so we can get a little bit deeper into the forward flexion. So we'll keep the left hand next to the left hip. Try to draw some weight back to your right sitting bone. You might feel kind of like you're hiking up there. So bring that sitting bone back into the floor. Raise the right arm. And on your exhale, take your right hand to your left thigh and turn yourself well to the left. That left hand can be directly behind your sacrum or your tailbone. Okay, so we're just going to kind of test the length of the arm here. So you can step your left hand kind of back in line of the outer hip. And you're going to sit forward with your torso a little bit. You're going to reach your right hand out. Have your knuckles, your right hand knuckles facing to the left. And see about extending the arm length forward as much as you can. And see about grabbing the outer foot. Good. Meanwhile, the right knee is probably flopping out to the side. So remember in Malasana, when you kind of brought some weight back to your inner foot, you're going to do that here as well. Training that knee back in. So the full pose, which we're not doing the full pose today, but if you're holding the outer foot, you would simply transfer the right hand to the inner foot and you would bring your left hand to the outer foot. But today we're doing the bound pose. So you can sit back up. We're going to work with an open strap. And I have a little trick for getting in because I find it's really awkward to try to find that strap behind your body and you have no idea where it is and it's just awkward. So we're going to start with it already in our hands. We're going to put the strap in our hands so that your palms face forward. You have a generous amount of space between your hands. It doesn't matter how much space because you have an opportunity to kind of cinch it down later. And you're going to sit forward again. And you're going to just try to drop your right arm in front of your right shin. Did we get it, Judy? I can't see. Okay. Now start to walk your hands together behind your back. I'm going to come look at you guys. There, Judy, I see you now. Sorry. I just couldn't tell. So you walk your hands together behind your back. Remember what the function of this is. Our shoulders want to droop forward. Use your hands as a way to help you roll the shoulders back and to restore the foremans of the chest. You guys look great. Okay. Couple breaths. So you might kind of let out some slack here between your hands so you can kind of unhook your arm from your shin. You're going to sit back up. Go ahead and extend your right leg. You're back in Dandasana. Just place your fingertips next to your hips. Sit up tall. Breathe. And then we'll go for side two. So again, you can not, there's no such thing as too much space between your hands. You can train it to be less over time as your shoulders develop, their openness, as kind of the familiarity of the pose increases. Sometimes our barrier is just that things are too weird. So we're going to start to bend the left knee. Put the heel in line with the sitting bone. And remember, we're going to be turning first. So activate your extended right leg. It's not just sitting there, it's active duty. Right hand's next to your hip. Inhale, left arm. Exhale, drop the left palm against your right thigh and slide your right hand so it's centered behind you, close to your body, probably touching you, turning well. In essence, we're overshooting the right leg so that we when we come out of the twist, we're right on target with it. We're squared up with it. So you're going to keep some of this twist, but you're going to step your right hand so it's more off the line of the hip. You're going to hinge forward and take that left arm with an internal rotation on the shoulder. So that means your palm faces off to the left, knuckles face off to the right. Grab for the outer foot, or even in that direction, even if you can't grab it, reach for the outer foot. If you can grab it, it's easier because you can actually pull on something. Training that left knee to sit back more in line with the hip. Don't let it flop out. Bring some weight to the inner foot. And if you are holding the foot, you're going to switch your left hand to the inner foot and your right hand to the outer foot. That's how you would come into that full pose. Otherwise, you can just kind of reach both arms out. But again, this isn't what we're focused on today. So you're going to inhale and come up. We're going to set up our strap behind us, holding with a generous amount of space between the hands, palms facing forward. Enough space that we can sit forward and find a way to get the arm in front of the shin. And then you're going to start to crawl the hands closer together if that's possible. And then you're going to use the pressure of your arm against your shin to help that shoulder sit back. It wants to just droop forward. Then we have this energy receding in the chest. That's not a good thing. So press your arm against your shin, move that shoulder back, bring your chest forward. Don't do this pose with your chin reaching. Your chest is reaching. So if your face is 10 feet in front of your spine, move your head back, lead with your chest rather than your chin. Good, you guys look great. And then allow enough slack to open out that you can unhook your arm and sit up. Extend the leg. Just pausing in mountain pose here. I have this digital clock and it just looks like 8s. I can't see it where it is. Okay, I'm just keeping track of time here. So we need to kind of cleanse the palate of all these forward extensions, even though we've been doing the back friendly version, because we haven't been going into the full deep flexion today. We still need to cleanse the palate. So we're going to do a supported bridge pose with one block. So you can come onto your back. And your choice to go low, the first setting of the block is just kind of that low horizontal plank. You might be needing a little bit more than that. After forward bending practice, you need less than you normally do. So even if you're used to kind of a middle or tall block, you might just try a lower setting because you probably won't need as much to kind of bring yourself back to neutral. And you can take it here, or you can take the version where you extend your legs. It's a little bit deeper. If you extend your legs, your heels should be wider than your hips. And we have to bring some effort to rolling the inner thighs down and to keeping our toes kind of above our heels. Unfold your arms, palms facing up, your chin snuggled into your chest. If you have extended your legs, you might really kind of tune into the relationship between pressing your heels into the floor more effortfully, and this helps you take the tailbone toward the ceiling. So it's useful to use your heels into the floor to keep your lumbar long, to keep the pelvic tilt active. And you might do the active version with legs extended and come back to more passive version after a few moments. We'll just be here another minute. Now let's release the spine a little bit more before Shavasana. You're going to come off of your block, move it out of the way. And just fold your hands onto your belly and step your feet to the edges of your mat. And you're going to kind of rock on your feet from side to side, letting the knees fall to one direction. And to ring the spine, the complete spine, roll your head opposite from the knees. You'll move your head and your knees back through the center. Let the knees travel to the other side, the head in opposition, turning away from the knees. So you can't do this too slow, but you can do it too fast. So every exhale is a kind of as fast as you want to go. The exhale, knees to the side. But you can stay to each side for any number of breaths, as long as it feels like you're getting a nice release on your spine. And once you feel like you've kind of moved through any residual tension we didn't intend to invite into the body, once you feel like you're ready to extend your legs and prepare for Shavasana, feel free to come into that pose. You might need some additional movements to get yourself ready for Shavasana. Taking some time to make some finely tuned adjustments to the body so you feel as spacious as you can. You've set the body down in alignment. And once you've taken those measures to be in the correct position, and we're just going to start to put everything into a more surrendered state. So with every exhale, just let the weight of your full body release into the floor. Releasing the face, forehead, cheeks, brow line. You really want to be in kind of a passive witness state here. Just watching the body, watching the breath, watching the mind. Now allowing your legs to surrender. Just envision the flesh falling off the bone. As you relax, you might notice that your exhale elongates. You might also notice your inhale is a little bit more short. It might be a moment where your body is completely sated by breath. You're neither breathing in nor out. Basking in this marinade, this bath of energy that we've cultivated with this particular practice. Let's take a moment to invite a deeper breath or even two. See if you can release the full breath out. Coming back to easy breathing, just bringing small movement back into the body, let it trickle in. Gently start to move to one side of your body. Moving at the speed of presence, so try not to get ahead of yourself. Take your hands to the floor, pressing down firmly. Bring yourself to a seated position. And when you're seated, bringing your hands together in front of the heart, and just using the base of the thumbs to scrub up on the breastbone. Sensing those 4 moons of your chest once again. Taking an easy smile to the face. Breathe in deeply through the nose and let it go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right. Beautiful work today, everybody. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you.